Morning, everyone. We are going to get started in about 5 minutes, so refresh your coffee. I'm going to keep the screen share off just so we can all see one another and connect. How is everyone doing? I see so many familiar faces.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Morning.
Morning.
Bright and cheery faces up there on the upper bar. That's good.
Rachel, you
Good
told me
morning,
there was going to be
everybody.
coffee and donuts.
You didn't get them? I dropped them
No.
off on your porch.
Some of us are calling in by phone, so no picture.
Well, we're happy to have you here no matter what.
Thank you very much. Miss your smiling faces. Do you have your mask on or are you mask free?
We are mask free.
Amen.
Drink our coffee.
Well, I am looking forward to this. This is a good way to start a Monday morning.
Good.
Great. Glad to have you here, Barbara.
Thanks, Rachel.
I, this weekend, had my son in his Reading onesie from Pagoda Apparel.
Very good. Love that.
Hey, Rachel, kudos to you because on my screen, somehow Jim Gerlach is right in the middle of everything. So
Me
I don't know how you
too.
did that, but that was impressive.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
That's very good. It's a good trick.
Your talents are unsurpassed, Rachel.
Yeah, I don't know how, but he is right in the middle of mine too.
Uh-oh.
On mine, he's up in the corner. But, you know, if you're reading left to right, he's the first one.
Well, certainly not of my doing, I could tell you that. I'm terrible at technology, so.
Barb, how are the mask sales going? The mask.
You know, we're doing really well with mask sales. We've done some for different companies that are branded, but we sell a couple every day from people just needing their masks.
Good.
So it's an interesting new accessory that just kind of created its own need. And for our business, that's been really nice.
Good.
My high school daughters have been busy collecting masks that are going to match the outfits they hope to wear at school. So
Yeah, and we can print on them. One of my experiments I have a couple experiments to do with masks this week. I want to take the lower half of my face and see if we can print that.
Good idea.
It's an experiment. I've seen some people who have done it with funny faces, but we'll just see.
Barbara,
and I can impersonate you when I go into a store.
Barbara, on Shutterfly, they have that as an option where you can scan a picture in and get a mask, but they want an exorbitant amount of money for that. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I thought it'd be nice. We were at the DoubleTree over the weekend. It was really nice. We really appreciated Craig has buttons for all the employees to wear. And that was just really nice because though we know a lot of them, when they put a mask on, you can't necessarily tell who they are. So I
That's
think
true.
finding a way to personalize, especially with going back to schools or in nonprofits, it's that ease of just making people feel comfortable. So I like the idea that a local company might be able to find an affordable way to do something to really personalize it.
Yeah, I know we can put like small bits of faces or logos on masks or names. That's not a problem. I just want to see if I can figure out how to line it up. You know, so I'm going to do myself first and see if I can get it right between the nose and the chin. We'll see.
Well, good luck.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Lisa.
At our daycare, they started using see-through plastic so that you can see their smiles.
Oh,
So
nice.
kids can understand who they're looking at. And they have the buttons too, which I think is so sweet.
Yeah.
But when I go there, it's always like condensation and like they're just breathing.
Yeah, my girls quickly figured out you can't wear lipstick and wear one of those masks.
I know, it's sad.
Makeup in general, just so everyone out there knows, because I found that out Saturday night when I took it off. All the makeup was inside the mask, and you look quite weird when you take it off. And my husband's like, you might want to go fix that. I walked in the bathroom, I was like, oh my God. So just a fair warning to people as you start going out more, just skip the makeup.
All right, well, I think we're going to get started. So I'm going to ask if everyone could please mute themselves just for the time being. Welcome to the GRCA Greater Reading Chamber Alliance Town Hall with Jim Gerlach. My name is Rachel Romig, and I'm the Executive Director of Events and Special Programs with the GRCA. We're so glad that you've all made it today because we're very excited to introduce you to Jim Gerlach, the new President and CEO of our amazing organization, the GRCA. Before we get started, like I said, I ask everyone to please mute yourself. And I see many people were able to show their videos, so thank you. We love to see faces. And just so everyone knows, this event is being recorded and we will be sharing it with BCTV for broadcast at a later date and time. Leading up to the event today, questions were submitted for Jim to answer. If during our town hall you have a question, please write it in the chat and we will ask it of him as we transition questions. To start our event, I'd like to welcome Jim to not only the event, but the GRCA as a whole. I'm not sure if I ever got to personally say that to him yet. So Jim started on March 23rd, right at the beginning of our full staff being sent home to work remotely. And I can only imagine how hard it is to start a new role in that environment. Jim actually didn't personally meet most of the staff until a few weeks ago. We all relied solely on Zooms just like this. As many of you know, Jim is formally a U.S. Congressman. He represented Pennsylvania's 6th District in the U.S. House of Representatives from 2003 to 2015. He came to GRCA from BIPAC, the Business Industry Political Action Committee, where he served as President and CEO. BIPAC, for those who don't know, is the oldest bipartisan business political action committee in the nation. Prior to his state and federal legislative career, Jim practiced law in Chester County and served on numerous community boards and commissions. And now he's here with our small but mighty team of the GRCA. And before we start with our questions, welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all, and great to spend time with you today and to just talk to you a little bit about GRCA and what we're doing. Rachel, again, thank you for setting this up. I've done a lot of town halls in my past life, and this will be a little different in that we don't have to get into all the big national issues that are out there and swirling around. I won't have to answer all your tough questions there, but instead focus on, obviously the good work the GRCA does for the business community in Berks County. And I hope, in addition to me just talking about my experiences so far and what we're working on, I hope you'll share ideas and suggestions, because one of the most important things I think I can do and our entire team can do is listen and get good feedback and good ideas and good suggestions from our members and the entire business community in Berks County, so we can continue to improve our offerings and our services. So I hope if you have some ideas and suggestions, you'll share them with us today so we can think about them. But other than that, Rachel, thanks for setting this up, and look forward to talking about what GRC is up to and what my experiences have been and where we're going from here.
Wonderful. So I'm going to spotlight your videos so that everyone can see your bright and shiny face, and we'll get into the questions. So
Okay.
I mentioned a little bit about when you started, but tell us about your first 90 days with the GRCA and some of the challenges and also some of the good stuff that's happened.
Yeah, well, it's all been good. I mean, challenging, no doubt about it, to really start the position from home and to meet your staff over this kind of technology, Zoom technology, which is really terrific. But I don't think there's substituting the ability to sit down and meet somebody personally and have an interaction with them that way. So that was the challenge, but I wouldn't say it was a negative challenge. I would say my experiences have all been positive. What I learned was, first of all, GRCA has an outstanding team of professionals, very experienced in their various areas of work, and very committed to not only the organization itself, but the business community generally. And then when you maybe even peel that back, really committed to growing the economy of Berks County, because that's really our essential role at GRCA. It's how do we directly and indirectly tie people together to ultimately have them sustain jobs in Berks County or grow jobs in Berks County. So I was really pleasantly surprised at the talent and the professionalism of the GRCA team. And then broadening that out further, you know, as one can imagine, you know, your early days in a position, you want to talk to all the staff, you want to talk to the board members, you want to talk to various community leaders to get their input. And I certainly took this last few months to do that. And there was surprisingly a lot of correlation and a lot of similarity in the views that people had as to where we are today as an organization and what we want to do moving forward. And what I really like about this organization is that it does have a multiple or multi-headed number of functions. So it's not just providing good services to chamber members to meet their needs as they continue to progress forward and hopefully out of this COVID situation as soon as possible, but it's also working on really major economic development projects in the county so that can really add to the growth of the economy locally. And it's also just working with people in and out of the organization that have a real passion for Berks County. So I was able to reconnect not only or connect with staff and board members, but also reconnect with a lot of people that I had worked with when I served Berks County in Congress or in the state Senate before that. So I've really been able to reconnect with a lot of old friends and get their thoughts and ideas of what's going on right now. And that's been a really positive and pleasurable part of the experience. So yeah, challenging to the extent that COVID's kept us apart physically, and still does, because we're not back to 100% full functioning, you know, everybody back in the office. People come in periodically, but still a lot of remote work. But a lot of good progress in terms of our organization, as well as what I want to be working on down the road for the entire county.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a 90 days learning the Zoom and all of the online stuff and connecting, but that's why I had shared earlier, if you are able to share your video, please do, because it really helps to connect. And I think that we've all done a really good job here to try and connect with one another. Second question, what are your top priorities or goals for GRCA in the short term and the long term?
Yeah, well, as I talk to a lot of the board members and certainly talk to the search committee, I think the three most important goals right now for the organization are to, number one, let's make sure that for our chamber members, and for, I'm guessing most people understand GRCA from its different roles, but perhaps not too. GRCA came together a little over 3 years ago as a merger of three different organizations: the Chamber, the Greater Reading Economic Partnership, and the Greater Berks Development Fund. And then eventually GREP, the Economic Partnership, did merge into GRCA. So in essence, there is a chamber function within GRCA to serve chamber members. There's also an economic development function within GRCA through the Development Fund. And so there's multiple things going on at the same time here in the organization. So I felt and do feel that the three key goals that we need to focus in on is providing great value to our chamber members for the dues that they pay, that we need to have the series of programs, activities, events, training, offerings that give the members, regardless of whether they're a small business, mid-sized business, or a large business, the feeling that for the dues that they're paying, they're getting value for it and then want to remain as members. In fact, maybe even talk to some of their colleagues in their industry sectors about also joining. So great value for membership dues. Number two, we need to continue to be the catalyst for identifying the most important economic development projects in the county and then spurring support for those projects across the public and private sector. And when I say private sector, that would also include the philanthropic community. So making sure we're pulling together public, private, and philanthropic sectors to really identify the best projects for economic growth, and then get more consensus around that and cohesion around that, and drive the major players to helping succeed with those projects. And then thirdly, I think the business community's voice is very important in the legislative process. And I can tell you that from a person that's spent 12 years in the state legislature, 12 years in Congress, total of 24 years. The business community's voice is important on a wide array of issues that come before the legislature in Harrisburg or Congress in Washington, D.C. And so I learned very early in this process, if you're not part of the discussion, then your voice isn't heard. And if your voice isn't heard, that legislator is going to vote on amendments to a particular bill or on final passage on a particular bill without understanding your viewpoint, without understanding the impact of that legislation relative to you as a business owner. And so it's very important that legislators understand what business owners feel about these issues, think about these issues, so they can take that into consideration in deciding how they want to vote. So I really want to see, I think there, Gail Landis, who was here up till, I think, about 90 days or 120 days or so, 4 or 5 months ago, she did a good job in laying a foundation for the advocacy component to GRCA. She really built up the number of events and the type of events that are going to be useful for our business owners to understand policy and then in turn advocate one way or the other on that policy. And I want to take that then to the next notch. I want to really make sure we have a strong voice with our state legislative delegation and with our federal delegation, and also the executive branch, you know, either the governor's side, governor's administration in Harrisburg, or with the executive branch in DC. So strengthening and broadening our advocacy as a business community, I think, is really important. So I would say those are the 3 top goals. And in all of those areas, we are working hard to look at what we're doing today and how we can improve upon what we're doing today and continue to move the organization forward accordingly.
Thank you very much. We did have a question from Mr. Bore, is that how you say it? Which was, what is your strategy to improve the business environment of Berks County? Do you want to elaborate any more on that apart from your goals?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's both directly and indirectly. For example, the development fund side, at Sawyer, Deb Millman, are working on a major project at Route 61 and 73. Property out there, try to get that redeveloped and new jobs, both construction and then full-time jobs there. That's an example of a direct connection in our work to economic development in Berks County. There's other projects, other properties in the city of Reading and other places around the county that we're actively seeking ways to find the appropriate use of those properties and the right developer so those properties can be developed. Those are tangible, direct examples of how we can help with economic growth in the county. But then there's indirect ways, and indirect ways are getting our members together, and it might be in a social setting. It might be in a training center. It might be women to women, as Rachel knows about. It might be a family business alliance, where they're talking with each other, and through those discussions, they're able to better understand their own business needs, as well as who can fulfill those business needs from another business standpoint. And so connecting businesses in Berks County so they can contract with each other more than hiring somebody out of Philadelphia or hiring somebody out of New York City or hiring a company out of Cleveland, Ohio. Understanding the great variety and diversity of businesses in Berks County and connecting those businesses so they can contract with one another. And through that business activity, help support their mutual growth. So there's indirect economic development and there's direct economic development. We want to be good in all of those areas because they're all going to end up sustaining jobs in Berks County or growing new jobs in Berks County. And I think that's ultimately what we're about. And when you can sustain jobs and then grow jobs, a lot of good things happen. The tax base in those municipalities continue to grow. The ability of businesses who are successful to contribute back in other ways to the community grows. It might be them helping with philanthropic organizations, charitable organizations. It might be them sponsoring the Little League or the soccer league in their municipalities where they're located. It might be them getting in a position where they're helping with the healthcare system in Berks County. So as you grow and expand the economy, the way those businesses can then contribute back as corporate citizens into the community is very, very important, and what we want to see too. So the more we can connect businesses, we can educate businesses, we can give them the resources they need to make decisions, not only to remain here, but grow here, and hire other businesses to do other types of work for them. We want to do that. And then when we find opportunities to do specific projects with specific property, specific buildings, specific areas of the community where that growth is necessary, we're going to get involved in that too. So we think across the spectrum, we can contribute to the growth of the business community in Berks County.
Wonderful. And you touched on philanthropic organizations, and Lisa Unrath, who's on the call today, she asked, what, if any, plans does GRCA have in mind to better support nonprofits in Berks? Recently, she was on a webinar and they spoke about a day of giving like Lancaster does with their foundation as an example.
Yeah, well, the nonprofit sector is a very, very important part of our community. And while they're nonprofit, that doesn't mean they don't have to run like a business and have to have budgets and have to make decisions on staffing, have to make decisions on where they put their dollars, make decisions on how they raise their dollars. So they're running like a business. They just, at the end of the year, utilize their revenues to undertake their charitable mission and hopefully end up $1 or $2 in the black at the end of the budget year and move on to the next year. But that doesn't mean they can't partake of a number of the services that we already have. As many of you hopefully know, we're in the midst of our Rebuilding Berks initiative, and part of that initiative is free training for businesses in Berks County, including nonprofits, to help them understand what they need to be doing relative to coming out of this COVID situation. Knock on wood, everybody knock on wood here, coming out of the COVID situation. Having tools and having resources to do that, from how do you continue to serve your customers, how do you engage with your customers and clients, to let them know that you're following CDC guidelines and you're following health and safety protocols. How do you market that? How do you better provide, depending on your business setting, how do you set up your operation internally to meet those protocols and yet still serve your clientele? How do you lead, if you're at a certain mid-manager or higher manager, how do you help lead your employees through that? So we've already been doing a number of training sessions on a lot of those issues. We're going to continue those through the summer. And so those are equally applicable to the nonprofit sector, because you need good leadership in the nonprofit sector. You need leaders in how to manage people, know how to manage time, know how to manage resources. And so we think those services are applicable equally to the nonprofit sector as well as for-profit sector. And then we also think, as you continue to build the business community in Berks County, again, the great majority of those businesses want to be great corporate citizens. And so they're going to look for opportunities to support nonprofits. And so your mission as a nonprofit may be very important to a business, because there might be employees within that business that feel strongly about your nonprofit mission. And so bring your mission to the attention of the business leaders in that business about support. So as you grow the economy and you grow the success of companies, they're going to want to look to give back to the community. They're going to want to look to find charitable missions that they believe in, And so we'll want to work with our nonprofits and try to help them with their mission. So we want our nonprofits involved with our business owners and our business leaders to let them know of what your missions are, to allow opportunities for you to interact with them, to find opportunities where if those businesses are successful and can give back, they can give back to those nonprofits and help sustain your missions. And then, of course, you want to have training and other types of events that give the nonprofits the skills they need to be successful as they work day to day towards the mission.
It's all connected.
All connected. Yeah, absolutely.
I have, the next question is sort of a two-part. One from Andre in the chat, but the first was, what have you learned about the Greater Reading business community during this time? And that segues into Andre's question of those things that you learned, what do you consider are the county's competitive advantages to attract new business?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm very impressed with the business community overall. It's a diverse business community, which is important. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in a small steel town north of Pittsburgh, and it was right after I graduated from high school. And won't tell you the year necessarily, but it was back in the 70s, and as we went through the 70s and the early 80s, all these steel towns up in the Beaver Valley, north of Pittsburgh, and down the Mon Valley, Monongahela Valley, south of Pittsburgh, just started, hemorrhaging steel jobs. U.S. Steel was the biggest employer in my hometown. When I was growing up in my senior year of high school, they consolidated their plant in Elwood with their facility in Gary, Indiana. So Elwood went from a town of about 15,000 when I was growing up, within about 10, 15 years, about half of that. And it still is only about, maybe 7,000, 6,000. It was a quad A high school, top high school level in terms of student body population. It's now only a double A. So what I saw there versus what I saw after I came down to this area of Pennsylvania after college and law school was those areas that have a very diverse economy tend to be the ones that continue to grow, because no one downfall of an industry will have an impact on that community as much than when you're just focused on one kind of economy and industry sector in your community. So Berks County is a very diverse business sector. And I think we want to try to strive to encourage that diversity as we encourage employers to look at Berks County. Clearly, the transportation infrastructure is good, but it can be improved upon, from the Route 222 corridor up to the Lehigh Valley to other possible transportation modes. We're continuing to have a serious discussion about reestablishing passenger rail service from Reading down through the Schuylkill River corridor to Philadelphia, and then perhaps then up to New York City or down to Washington, D.C. So I think the county is very well positioned if you can improve some of that transportation infrastructure. Seeing now what's happening through Alvernia University with their College Town project to provide additional educational opportunities, higher educational opportunities is really, really important too. And then you throw in the Drexel Medical School project. So the educational opportunities continue to grow. RAC continues to do a lot of great work for the 2-year associate's degree folks. So I think there's a very great core of educational opportunities, a very diverse business community overall in various industry sectors, and really strong business leaders who want to see the kinds of projects that are still important to grow the economy move forward as quickly as possible. And I think you have a very willing elective office, public officials group that really want to see that happen too. So I see a lot of those things coming together as positives for Berks County if we can make sure we can get a good consensus around those projects and work more in unison with each other to accomplish them.
And so you did touch on, Lisa had another question about the passenger rail. What do we have to do with it? So we're obviously part of those conversations. Would you like to elaborate more on that, or is just the conversational?
Yeah, thanks. The Berks Alliance is doing a lot of great work recently on this whole issue, and it was a big project when I was in Congress. In fact, back then when members of Congress could do what's called earmarks, congressional earmarks, put specific dollars into appropriations bills to have dollars come back to your local community. I forget the exact amount, but we got tens of millions of dollars for the Schuylkill Valley Metro project to do the studies, to undertake, the planning for that. But the project back then, as I recall, sort of fell through when it got to the point where you had to determine how the local share, there would be federal dollars going in, some state dollars going in, but you still needed some local dollars to go in too, to pay for the project overall. The right-of-way is generally there. There might have to be some right-of-way improvements down near what's called the Black Rock Tunnel near Phoenixville. But overall, the Norfolk Southern right-of-way from Reading down through the corridor is there. Not sure how much they will charge yet to have access to that right-of-way. That's one of the unknowns at this point. But otherwise, getting the right-of-way acquisition, making a few right-of-way improvements, and then just the rolling stock, as well as some improvements to the train stations where the stops will be. That is the meat of the project. And the Berks Alliance more recently has engaged an outside consultant called TEMS. I think it's an acronym for Transportation and Engineering Management, TEMS. They've concluded a couple studies on what a rail service would look like, what the passenger interest would be, ridership would be, what the economic impact in the communities where the train service would be available. And I think Berks Alliance now is in the planning stages of having a community forum to release that information to community leaders to begin the dialogue on what would the Berks portion of this project be. Right now, there's a Phoenixville task force, and they've basically come up with their plans of how they come up with the local share. Basically, the Chester County part, if you want to look at this in 3 counties, the Berks portion basically from Reading to Pottstown, the Montgomery County portion, Pottstown to Phoenixville, and then the Chester County portion from Phoenixville down at the connector in Norristown. Phoenixville already has their economic game plan put together and how they would do that. They have the support of the Borough Council as well as the county commissioners in Chester County. So I think now it's time for the Berks County leaders to step up and figure out how the Berks component to this can be put in place. And then that would put a lot of pressure on the Montgomery County people to be the final leg to come up with their funding. But if we can come up with the game plan to fund those 3 segments, those 3 components, this might be a really good opportunity right now, because I think you're going to see in the coming months, as part of any COVID-related legislation that might move through Congress, and there'll probably be at least one more bill that'll happen sometime over the next few months. There will probably be a significant transportation infrastructure component to it. And we think, therefore, there might be some federal dollars more available now than perhaps in the past. And remember, too, there's 2 avenues of federal dollars: the Federal Transit Administration, FTA dollars, and that would be for a passenger rail, commuter rail service. And then there's also Federal Rail Administration, FRA dollars, which we think there's more of. And those would be available if this project were what's called an intercity. Intercity being from Reading down ultimately to Philadelphia, but also Amtrak up to New York and down to Washington, D.C. So if this were an intercity rail project rather than a commuter rail project, there might be some more federal dollars available for it. And it might provide opportunities for people to ride all the way from Reading up to New York City or down to Washington, which would increase ridership. So bottom line is the Berks Alliance has done a lot of great work reinvigorating interest in this project. They've I think, are ready to announce the results of these studies that they've conducted through Thames. And we look forward at GRCA to help them with this discussion in Berks County, as has already happened in Chester County, and start putting those pieces back together to make it a regional project.
I'm excited to see the results of that study as well. That's exciting. It's exciting. So as we're looking to sort of the future of transportation, let's switch to a different topic. So we have several businesses in Berks that promote their use of renewable energy. Beanbo Bakeries, DS Smith, Penske. We have a significant, this is from Scott Case. We have a significant battery industry, good for storing wind and solar energy and for electric vehicles. We have companies making products out of recycled materials. So DS Smith and boxes, Carbon Light, new business to Berks and bottles, Radius and toothbrushes. And we have huge organic farms and ag-based products, which are getting more and more diverse. What are the opportunities to market Berks County as a place that is building the future economy?
Well, first of all, Scott, if you could send me all that information the way you've summarized it, that's great. I wasn't thinking of this issue in terms of those specific companies that are doing those specific things. So the way you wrote that out or typed that out, send that to me, or Rachel if you can, because I think you're onto something there. As far as I know right now, we don't have a particular overall sustainability marketing project here. Although I think the way you've just stated that in your email is a very interesting one that we should take a look at. I do know that we do talk about the ag sustainability, and we want to try to market ag products. We still have a very significant agribusiness sector in Berks County, and so how do we promote more of that? But I could easily see that dovetailing with the other sustainability approach that you just suggested. And we would have to sit down with our marketing people and say, or not say, but ask them, you know, what are the key values around here that can be communicated in a marketing campaign, and how can that be? Who do we market to, and how do we then market with that idea, that concept, particular properties, particular places that are available for those companies to grow or expand or to come here to Berks County in the first place. So I'd be glad to take up that issue and talk to our marketing folks about whether that's an approach that would be helpful for us to expand business in Berks County. One of the things we did, we haven't progressed very far with it, although we're talking about it. You know, are there certain areas where we should do a better job marketing Berks County? I was not too long ago down in the Roanoke, Virginia area in their airport, and they had a neat sign. It said bikes, brews, business, Roanoke. And what they were projecting in that message was bikes. They have a lot of trails. The Blue Ridge Parkway is near there. A lot of, you know, the Shenandoah Valley stuff. They, I guess, have a very burgeoning craft brew industry in that area. And then they generally have, you know, a lot of business growth. And then the last tagline is Roanoke. So they get you to think about different sectors of their business community, and then, yes, this is the place to be, Roanoke. And so there might be some ways to market Berks County in a different way, in a unique way that gets people thinking about Berks County as a place they want to be. So long answer to your question, Scott, but I think we ought to be looking at sustainability as a marketing approach, and I'd be glad to take the information you just shared with us and talk to our marketing people about that, and get back to you so you know what we think about it, so it's not just left hanging. Great,
thank you. From Barbara, and Barbara, I never say your last name right, I'm so sorry. She's from Pagoda Apparel. How are you going to support minority businesses moving forward?
Yeah, it's a very important question. There's a couple steps we're taking. One with regard to the Latino business community. We're trying to rethink how we're going to try to serve them better. And I want to do some outreach to some leaders within the business community there to talk about some fresh ideas. Some of the feedback I got over the past few months is that whatever our approach was, it wasn't it was good, but we weren't seeing a lot of success with it. So can we take a refreshed approach to how we engage with the Latino business community and for that matter, the African American business community as well. But on the heels of what we've gone through over the past month or two with the George Floyd tragedy and the protests around the nation, as well as here in Berks County, we also want to take a fresh look at equality and inclusivity issues. And so our board at GRCA authorized us to form a board/staff committee to look at equality and inclusivity issues in the business community of Berks County, to see, number one, what kind of needs are out there, what kind of services are in need of our businesses, to have them take a fresh look as businesses about their equality and inclusivity policies and how they can utilize that not only to improve their workforce, not only the quality, but the morale of their workforce, but also have that be part of their competitive advantage and their competitive edge. So we just started that committee work. We have some of our staff at GRCA on that committee, as well as some board members, and we're reaching out to other members who are in the minority communities of Berks County to have them join us in that committee, both from a African American and a Latino perspective. So we hope that their additional insights to the rest of the committee will be very important for us to better understand their needs in the minority business communities and how we can overall promote inclusivity and equality within our business sector in Berks County. So the results of that we'll certainly be putting out there to our members so they know where we're going with that.
Thank you. And that was from Barbara Olayowe. I discovered how to pronounce it correctly. Okay, a couple more questions. So this is more of a fun question. Tell everyone a fun fact about yourself or something people may be surprised to learn about you.
Well, knowing that this might be a question, I don't have a lot of fun facts about myself. I have fun facts that I think are fun in my mind, but I don't think other people would give a hoot about. So trying to figure out what the answer to that is really, really difficult. But there's one thing that nobody on this call knows, and very few people in my circle of friends know about it unless you go way, way back with me. Many of you might have had a nickname when you were growing up. And I certainly had a nickname when I was growing up in Elwood City. And in fact, a lot of my teachers didn't know my real name, Jim or James. They just knew me by my nickname. And I played sports in high school. And so, when I did well in the football game, I was a running back. They used my nickname and my last name, even in the newspaper articles. And so there were a lot of people in my hometown didn't know what my real name was. It was my nickname. So, I guess I'm leading up to telling you what the nickname is, but my nickname was Bimbo. I was known as Bimbo Gerlach. And how the hell did I get that name? Well, my older sister is Hetty, is her name. Hetty couldn't say Jimmy. She was 2 years older than me, so she was only a couple years old, obviously, when I was born. She couldn't say Jimmy, she would say Bimmy, and so Bimmy became Bimbo. And so it wasn't until I got to college that people started calling me Jim or Jimmy, and then even then, some of my fraternity brothers learned what my nickname was in growing up in Elwood, and so a lot of them in college called me that too. So that's a little known fact. It's not necessarily a fun fact, but it's a little known fact that maybe answers your question.
That's definitely a fun fact. And the way that
So you're not going to, Rachel, I'm going to have you sign a secrecy pledge, a confidentiality agreement as soon as this is over so you don't spread it around to the rest of the staff.
And the way that you led up to it, I was like, what is this going to be? Okay.
A fun fact. It's fun for me. Because it was so unusual and so special an opportunity. Had an opportunity to be on Air Force One with President Bush, and that's a fun thing. But he was coming up to Philadelphia to talk to a state legislative conference in downtown Philadelphia. So he invited me to be on Air Force One with him, and then also ride with him in the presidential limousine from the Philadelphia airport up to the hotel in Philadelphia. So as you can imagine, they shut down the entire I-95. Nobody could go north or south, couldn't get on the ramps or anything. So here I am sitting right across from the president in his limousine, driving up I-95 from the airport with no other car on I-95. And it was the strangest feeling. And you're trying to have just a normal conversation. So I asked him, Mr. President, what do you think Major League Baseball, because he was a very big, in fact, he was with the Texas Rangers organization, a very big Major League Baseball guy. I said, do you think at some point Major League Baseball should maybe move towards the NFL model, where all the NFL teams share the TV revenues nationally, and they put a salary cap on each team at the same level, so nobody can have 2 times the amount of salary, and therefore have all the good players, and then the smaller market teams have less of a budget to have big name players. Would that be a good way to even out Major League Baseball competitiveness like NFL does? And he went into this long discussion that George Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, would never go for it, blah, blah, blah. But I was just sitting there, it was one of those pinch me moments as sometimes you get when you do something very unique. Here I am, a little kid from Elwood City, Pennsylvania, sitting across from the president in the limousine going up I-95 with not another car in sight, talking to the president about Major League Baseball. That was a kind of cool experience. So for me, it was fun. I don't know if you would consider it a fun thing, but that's a little fun experience to share.
That is definitely, thanks for letting us in on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
We did get a question in while we were chatting from Landon Bernheiser. Large businesses see Berks County workforce as an opportunity. How can we assist in making our workers ready, thereby improving the local economy?
Yeah, and employers talk about that constantly. They need a ready workforce with the skills, particularly now in the technology world. And so they're constantly looking for workforce sources that can produce these kind of skilled labor, skilled in technology skills, and sometimes skilled in other areas too. And so that's where you need to have educational institutions that have the ability to constantly improve their curriculum to meet the needs of local employers. And I know RAC continues to have a strong desire to understand, what kind of needs our employers have, and then draw those students into those programs and get them the skills that they need. It might be in certain kinds of manufacturing. It might be in healthcare delivery. Whatever it is, employers need those skills. And so we need to work on that at GRCA, make sure we're connecting our educational institutions, our major industry sectors together so that they are producing the educators, the kind of skills necessary. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a 4-year college degree. It might be in a very specialized skill, a very specialized associate's degree. But we need to continue to assess that workforce need. And then how do we partner with the educational institutions to make sure those students are being educated with those skills and making themselves available to our employers. It's not a battle just in Berks County. It's a battle all across the country to have a skilled workforce that you need readily available when you need them. So it's a huge issue nationally, and for that matter, internationally. It's a huge portion of the competitiveness issue. So, and we're no different in Berks County. So how do we continue to assess it? How do we continue to make sure we understand what those needs are? And then do we have the educational and training infrastructure to produce those workers based on that need? And the counties and the regions that do it better and quicker than other competitive regions, they're going to be the ones that are going to produce the workers that produces in turn. I'm sorry. That's my daughter, by the way. She's getting married in 1 month. And so she's constantly calling me about this or that. So it's our first of our children. It's our first wedding. So she's calling me at odd times. So pardon the phone call there. But we've got to understand it. And again, the region that understands it and understands the needs, gets the curriculum in place, and produces those skilled workers and gets them out there to those employers are going to win the race.
Thank you very much for answering that. At this point in time, we only have one question left. So if anyone has any other questions, please pop them into the chat. We're jumping back to another fun one. What are your favorite things to do or hobbies when not under a stay-at-home order?
Well, I don't have a lot of hobbies, but what I enjoy doing is biking. I like to bike a lot, and my wife does too. So it's a good couples thing, and so we get out onto the trails, biking trails in the region, and really enjoy that. Then otherwise, when I'm just at home, I really love to read historical biographies. Really interested in the Civil War and Revolutionary War periods, and so I do a lot of reading about Civil War battles or generals or things of that nature. So I just find it fascinating, both the Revolutionary War and the Civil War periods. Although I did just finish a book on George Marshall, which was really great. The insights that that book provided and the role he played during World War II. Of course, we know the great generalship of, Ike, General Eisenhower, or even George Patton and some of the others, but behind the scenes, the Army Chief of Staff was George Marshall. And it was amazing what he did to pool the amount of resources together to meet the challenges that we were faced when Germany and Japan declared war on us, and how we had to take a nation that had maybe only the 15th largest army in the world at that time and ratchet it up to where it needed to be to fight a war on two fronts, both in Europe and in Asia. That was a fascinating book. So I'm sorry to say I forget the author, but it's just George C. Marshall, and it's out there in the bookstores. But that was a fascinating book. So bottom line, I really like to read historical biographies, particularly from those time periods. And other than that, if the weather's nice, go out and bike a little bit. So that's pretty much it. And I enjoy cooking a little bit and grilling. So, but everybody does. So it's nothing.
Have you been to some of the biking trails around here?
I haven't been any right around here. I like to get over to the Delaware River, the trails along there, up into the Lehigh Valley. I've been up there. And there's some good ones in Chester County. But yeah, we should get up here. My wife and I should get up here and try a few.
Okay. Well, at this point, we are through with the questions, but I wanted to thank everyone, number one, for joining us. And I think I can speak for Jim in that we are looking forward to be able to safely meet again and shake hands. I never thought I'd miss shaking hands, but thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, and thanks, Rachel, for setting this up, and thank you all for your time and being on the call. Really appreciate it. And maybe a couple things I've said jogs your mind a little bit about an idea or suggestion. So please share that with us. We're constantly looking for ways to improve. So want to have your input. So feel free anytime to share that with us, please.
Yeah. So let's see here. Okay, so we brought everybody back. I'm sure that when you first logged on, you saw that we have a lot of upcoming workshops, and I just want to share them one more time for you because we have a lot happening to help the business community in general. Our new GRCA daily workshops, they're ongoing through July, August, and beyond. We have a 1-hour free session every day except Wednesdays from local expert businesses. Every Wednesday in July is the State of Education. We're promoting this in partnership with the BCIU. We'll be talking about what it's going to look like for the future. For Women to Women, we have 2 events in July, including Mujer a Mujer, a Latina initiative, and the second day of our Digital Leadership Summit. both on an online platform and in an app to create really great connections. And if you are a family business on the Town Hall, please join us on Friday for part 2 of 3 of the FBA virtual event series. Kozloff Stout will be examining and discussing the evolution of the green phase and how it keeps changing. And then last but definitely not least are our 2 signature events. We have got, we couldn't have the annual picnic this year because we couldn't get that many people together. So instead we're bringing picnics to our members and non-members. So you can purchase a basket for 10 people and then we deliver them personally. And we only worked with GRCA members to create these baskets. Lots of yummy stuff. And the dinner this year, which normally brings together about 800 to 1,000 people, we couldn't have that in person, but we've transitioned to virtual, and we're still really excited to introduce you to Wes Moore. We're going to be having seats in a virtual Santander arena. Dinner and drinks are still on us. Every attendee receives a swag bag with fun swag, a bottle of wine from Felino Estate and Winery, and a gift card to one of our 19 GRCA restaurant members. Plus lots of other goodies, and we discounted the ticket price since we transitioned to virtual. But if you would like, I know it's not 10:30 yet, so if you allocated that time and you are interested in sticking around and networking, we would love to make that possible for you, so you can hang on. But thank you so much for being here today, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Hope you join us at one of our events.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Bye-bye.